afternoon. My name is Lindsay D'Souza, and I work on the alumni team here at McMaster. Welcome to today's At Home with Mac webinar. Our At Home with Mac programming over the next 2 weeks aims to educate, entertain, and focus on your well-being. Today's session will focus on why we all need a little hygge in our lives with McMaster alumna Amanda Weldon. Amanda is a 2014 graduate of McMaster's Faculty of Science with a major in life science. She's a Canadian broadcaster for the Weather Network, an in-arena host for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, and a lifestyle content creator for her own brand, Below the Blonde. If you have a question for Amanda today, use the Q&A function to type your question in, and we will get to as many as we can. The chat function will be open following the formal presentation. And finally, this presentation will be recorded and available on our alumni YouTube channel a few days following our event. So grab your warm beverage, cozy up in a soft blanket, and dim any overhead lighting. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the next hour as Amanda introduces us to hygge, defined by Merriam-Webster as a quality of coziness that makes a person feel content and comfortable. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Amanda.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay. Thank you all for joining. You never see what's going on behind the scenes, but Dave is our technical director, and he is going to be doing some of the transitions and everything that you're going to be seeing. And he was counting down the amount of people that were watching currently. And as a Canadian broadcaster, it's so funny because you're broadcasting, it's going across the country. You never know how many people are watching. So I'm so thankful that you're taking your time out of your day to join me today. And hopefully you've gotten cozy. I know I was talking to Jessica from the alumni office as well. Thank you, Jessica, for setting this up and kind of pulling me into this program. But I told her, okay, I need you, Jessica, to get everyone cozy at home. So I hope that you've lit a candle. I have mine right here. We're going to talk about this candle very specifically in a moment's time. I know as well, Lindsay was talking about getting your cup of tea. This is the intro. So if you haven't brewed something yet, I invite you to do that. And as well, it's Zoom. You can't see what's going on in my legs, but I do have a blanket on. I will say that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen. I have prepared some slides here. Oh, here we go. Here we go, Dave. Okay, I'm going to share my screen first. We're all figuring out Zoom life. And now I'm going to pull up my slides here and expand. And Lindsay was so right when she was talking about hygge. Now, I don't know about you guys at home, but as a Canadian, we have a lot of very similarities with what goes on in Scandinavia and with the Danes, because if you look outside, if you have not looked outside yet, I don't think you need me to tell you the weather report of what's going on today. We do have some snowfall warnings for Southern Ontario, but hygge is basically that art of creating intimacy. And with such cold winters, my whole goal with working at TWN and then thinking about our harsh cold winter and what's going on with COVID recently, I was just thinking to myself, okay, how are we going to get through this winter knowing that there is no escape at this point? And so my whole goal was to really look abroad and look at people around the world who not only have a harsher winter, but also, incidentally, through many studies, have proved to even have happier people. So that's what we're going to look into today. And hygge is one of those things that I just, I didn't realize that I was living by some of these principles in my every single day life. And I hope that maybe you leave this seminar thinking, holy Hannah, I have been living the hygge lifestyle for a very long time. So simple living tips from the happiest people in the world. That is what we are going to cover today. It is going to be one of those come as you are kind of presentations. And a lot of this knowledge I had gathered after doing some research from the little book of hygge. And I sent over a link to Jessica, and this is The Danish Way of Living Well. There are many books that are written about hygge. You may recognize this one if you've been in Indigo. And it's written by Mike Wicking, and he's from the Happiness Research Institute in Copenhagen. Now, maybe he's a little biased because he's in Copenhagen saying they're pretty happy, but There's so much awesome information here, and it's over 1 million copies sold. People are very committed to learning about this practice as well. So what is it? What the heck is Hygge? First of all, I think one of the hardest parts, not only describing what it is, because there's no exact definition, translation rather, to English. We try to pull these little pieces and say that definition of what it is. Lindsay had one, and then earlier I said the art of creating intimacy, but probably even harder than even harder than saying what Hygge is, pronouncing it is probably even more difficult. It looks a little bit difficult to say, and many people will sometimes say Hygge, H-O-O-G-A, but it's actually Hygge. So if you just say it fast, you say it quick, and you say it kind of in the depths of your throat, you're gonna get it right. So it's that Danish word for acknowledging a feeling or a moment. The really cool thing about Hygge and the way that it's done in the Danish language is basically you can kind of pull in little pieces of the word to create other compound words. So there's other things like saying, oh, that's very hyggelig, which is basically like saying that's very Hygge-like. If you were to walk in past a coffee shop and it's got this beautiful kind of coffee shop lighting, the lo-fi playlist, people just chatting, and the light buzz and smell of caffeine and aroma in the room, that is very Hyggelig. So that's what we're going to go into today. It's about embracing the ordinary versus just the extraordinary. There's a huge range, and it's something that you can really acknowledge as being maybe a bit more charming or special. So Benjamin Franklin said it best: happiness consists more in small conveniences or pleasures that occur every day than great pieces of good fortune that happen but seldom. And that's such a good place to start, because every single day feels like Groundhog Day right now. I'm sure you guys can relate. It's really getting us back to the roots. Of course, COVID was not a good thing to happen. The pandemic, not a great thing around the world. But I'm sure that there are little pieces that you've taken out of your every single day, as have I, that I've started to realize, oh, wow, I need to slow down and appreciate these really amazing moments every single day, because that is the true journey to happiness in life. The Hygge value, though there's no exact translation, we really think of happiness and coziness. And what's interesting is around the world, many different countries have a word that's similar to this. And inside the little book of Hygge, Canada is one of the countries that was actually pulled out of the book. There were about 5. Germany was another one. Norway was another one. And our word worldwide that isn't actually used in many other countries is hominess. So I totally remember being a kid and my mom talking about hominess, and we would be walking around maybe a furniture store and there would be a cozy blanket. Oh, that's so homey. That's more of a Canadian word. So now I want you guys to kind of do like a visualization technique. So this is called the situation part of the presentation, an illustration of Hygge. So Hygge, in the broadest sense, of course, it's that feeling. So let's mentally put ourselves in a feeling of Hygge. You are in your coziest outfit, a very come as you are kind of outfit. The pair of socks that when you get home after a long day of work, or you've been wearing heels, I know you, that's been me. You put those socks on. You are thrilled to put those on. As soon as you get home, there is a slow cooked meal. You can smell the aroma just wafting throughout the house, and none of the overhead lighting's on. No, it's the nighttime now. The night has fallen, it's dimly lit, it's very cozy. There's a couch, a blanket, a book waiting for you, or even your favorite Netflix show, and outside an absolutely raging storm. That is a situation that is extremely Hygge. And to make it even more, you have 2 friends coming over to spend the night with you, and they are also bringing over some confectionery, and they're bringing over some lattes, your favorite brewed drink. This is all just, doesn't that just fill your heart with a little bit of something special? So how do we start bringing Hygge into our lives? Acceptance of the weather. This is something I had to get my head around when I started doing broadcasting for the weather. You know what? There's no such thing as bad weather. There's only unsuitable clothing. And that is one of my absolute favorite quotes. The moment that I decided winter's going to be tough, it is. But there are countries around the world that absolutely envy us for having 4 seasons. And what if we just start to embrace it? I know a lot of us have been saying, hey, we just haven't got a lot of snow. There's not a lot of fun activities that we can do outside. Well, look outside now. We're so lucky. So with so many cold and dark days and just having those simple joys of lighting a candle, there's also something that's very important, and that's also going to be going outside. We're going to talk about that in a moment's time. Now, I described you maybe my perfect night of what a hygge environment would be, but Mike Wicking inside of his book also describes a night that was extremely hygge. It's also connected very much to Christmas. Like there's different times where this is kind of embraced even more within the culture. And he describes a nice night. It was Christmas Eve. There were 4 of them. They had just spent a day outside exploring. It was obviously cold. It was getting dark. And one of the best meeting places to have a hygge kind of night is the fireplace. Many people identify the fireplace as one of the top words when it comes to hygge. And he was there with 3 of his friends, the most ideal number, whether you're an introvert or not, 4 people in a room, that's just the chef's kiss. And they were just hanging out and enjoying. And one of them turned to the other and said, could this be any more hygge right now? And then the one woman in their group said, yes, there could be a raging storm outside. And that story, that little anecdote always stuck with me, because I think oftentimes when it comes to the winter, thinking of just a wild storm outside, when many of us are actually encouraged to stay home, I think it actually makes you want to have that wintry storm come on out. Now, bringing hygge home is also one of the really cool parts about this culture, because I do warn you, you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of stuff to bring this feeling into your home. You can look around, and I guarantee that you already have quite a few things at home that really are identified underneath this kind of way of living. Helen Russell, a British journalist who wrote The Year of Living Danishly, defines the term as taking pleasure in the presence of gentle, soothing things like a freshly brewed cup of coffee and cashmere socks. So a couple of the things that we can really identify as a hygge feeling, well, you can probably guess this already. It's things like woven textiles, things that are really tactile when you touch them and kind of just have that handmade feeling to them. Candles, of course, we're going to dive a bit deeper in on that subject specifically, as well as pools of light, a warm fireplace, we've already touched on that, and wooden elements too. What I find cool about the wooden elements specifically is you can very much bring in an antique vibe. This does not have to be new furniture. No. It's so much better when things are passed down, refurbished, DIY'd, flipped, because they just carry a bit more of a story. Natural elements, of course. If I could turn my camera for you, I would. You can probably see my monstera encroaching in on our video chat as we speak. It has gone absolutely wild over the past bit. Plants are such also a great thing to bring inside and have. Being amongst living things is just, there's just something special about it, a community vibe, and especially if you are living alone right now. And my heart goes out to you too if you're in that scenario going through this pandemic on your own. And then a sheepskin rug, why not? Getting more textiles in there as well. So speaking specifically to candles, this is such a cool topic because candles is one of the #1 things that people in Denmark will say connects the strongest to hygge. And more than half of Danes light candles almost every single day in the autumn and the winter, and only 4% of that population, according to Mike Wicking in his book, say that they don't like candles. Now, scented candles aren't as big of a thing. I do have my one candle lit here, but I have another one. They are more into these kind of candles, these kind of cathedral looking candles. And I remember when I was reading this with my partner, Scott, as well, he immediately had to purchase these. And I've got to tell you, turning off the lights, getting into the state of flow, I don't think there's anything that is more gratifying than just being in one project with some dimly lit light, writing out a story or whatever you've got to do at work, and just having a candle and a hot tea beside you. Danes burn almost twice as much candle wax as the next runner up, which is Austria. I'm in the competition here by now. I've been burning a lot of candles, but I think that's pretty impressive. And then one of the main warnings though was just remember to air out the room because as soon as you blow them out, you don't want to have a house fire because you have been taking my advice on lighting the candles. The cool thing as well, I did a few YouTube videos on this, especially Hygge at home, which I will link for you guys down below if you want to learn more about this specifically. But people were also joining in the comments saying, hey, you can actually get battery lit candles now if maybe you are in a smaller place and it's not as conducive to have actually lit candles. That's something to consider. Now, candles aside, of course, that is a very specific type of lighting, but pools of light as well is very important. Strategically placing your light around the room is something of an art. And one of the original kind of architects of light, Powell Hennessy, he was saying that, you know, anyone can light a room, but it takes culture to light it properly. And if you're in the sciences, then you know about kelvins and the level of light. A camera flash, oh, we've all been blinded by that before. Not exactly very Hygge, is it? Fluorescent lighting, absolutely not Hygge. And incandescent lighting, maybe getting a little bit more down. But when you think about a really nicely lit room, it's that light that is just warm and inviting. And there's pools of light around the room. I remember when I first learned about that phrase, pools of light, putting something like a paper lamp from IKEA in your corner and creating that pool of light is just so inviting. And I've always found that so romantic to think about. And sunsets, wood burning, candles, about 1800 Kelvin. And that is the sweet spot. So the obsession with lighting, you're probably thinking, well, that makes sense, but why? Well, the obsession from that becomes part of their natural world. So there is a lack of light. There's not much going on from October to March, much like us in Canada, where sometimes you leave for work and you come home and you're in the complete darkness. It's very much that kind of vibe in those winter months, and that's why it's so seeped into the culture. Now, this one is a bit bittersweet for me to talk about. Obviously, we all know why, but togetherness is one of the most important pieces, one of the most important threads to the fabric of happiness. And it's 3 to 4 people, which is the sweet spot. It's so funny because they talk in the book as well, or Mike talks in the book as well, about introverts, saying Hygge is actually pretty good for introverts because in that sense, you get that 3 to 4, you're actually having a conversation. It's nowhere near being in a club full of tons of people and you can't hear anyone. It's being with people that you care about, that you know care about you as well. And the research just basically shows that that's a key ingredient to happiness. I know having outside picnics with Scott and I and our 2 best friends, just out in the park where they are socially distanced and we are socially distanced. And there's just something so special about having that connection with that small of a group of people. Belongingness hypothesis, that's basically saying that we all really need that connection, and it's a major part of motivation and the way that our behavior is formed as well. And then starting new traditions. So this is something that I kind of put in here as well. How can we make sure that we're doing this? I know we are all so sick of the Zoom thing. Thanks for joining for today. But yeah, I think we're getting over it a little bit. But I think we need to take those things from that first lockdown that we learned, connecting on games night. Maybe we're planning movie nights where we're all going to watch the same movie tonight and we'll talk about it after. We all get a chance to pick that movie, or even socially distanced coffees outside when it's appropriate to do so, or just listening to a similar podcast and talking about it. Finding ways to get togetherness is great. Now, nothing brings togetherness more than food, and this is probably one of my favorite parts of Hygge because there's this one phrase written in the book and I love it. I think this needs to be embroidered on a pillow. If you guys are crafters, maybe this is your next hit. Let's sin together. It's all about, if I offer you a dessert and you are thinking, oh no, my New Year's resolution, you're going to say, yeah, I'm going to give it a go. I'll take a couple bites. Food in Hygge is very, it's all that comfort food. We all know it. The aroma of dinner, whether that be a stew, something very hearty, or coffee, confectionery, chocolate, carrot sticks, not so much Hygge, not so much a part of that, unless of course it is cooked. And they were talking as well about how popcorn is such a great hygge kind of meal. That's when you cozy up, you're watching a film, and popcorn is especially more hygge if you are sharing it with someone. So the European average, I feel like I should be there right now. Sweet consumption, 4.7 kilograms per year. Danish, 8.1. Not too bad, almost doubling it. And of course, we've already gotten the idea of the list of things here. So Signe Johnson, she has written How to Hygge the Nordic Secrets to a Happy Life. And this is more a cookbook if you're more interested in specifically the food side. And there are many different recipes online if you're of age to make some mulled wine, because that as well, having that cardamom, the pods, and just that smell in the air and just kind of enjoying a warm beverage like that is also very hygge. Number 8 in the list of how to create hygge and how to bring this in your home is creating rituals. And I think that this is something that I never realized that I did. And now that I do realize, I appreciate it that little bit more. And it's creating rituals without effort. Love that. So this can be anything from brewing a cup of tea or coffee in the morning. I don't know about you guys. I have been decluttering. I have been purging. I clean my house every day. I still have to clean my house every day. But purging things and realizing that we don't need too much is great. Like every single morning, I brew my tea in my favorite mug. I rotate about 3. I have one I use in the morning, one in the afternoon. And I just find that ritual so comforting. And even it could be something as simple as treating yourself to some flowers and bringing those in, lighting your favorite candle, we've talked about that, or even just having a call with a friend on a Sunday night. You just know you're gonna do it, and you know you're gonna enjoy it and feel a little bit more full after. The funny thing about sometimes some of these things, especially when it comes to calling our friends or chatting with them and creating that ritual, is sometimes we're tired. I don't know if I wanna do it tonight, but you know you always leave those conversations feeling a little bit more full and a little bit more energized, and maybe even more yourself. It's all about being aware of a good moment. This is another thing though. They've got it covered. Perhaps Scandinavians just know how to do it, because when it comes to a government side of things and the way that everything is run, whether you agree with it or not, they've also got things nailed down like free university and education, social security, healthcare, infrastructure, paid family leave, which is amazing, and as well, at least a vacation a year. Or rather a month of vacation a year. Don't mind that at all. So that's definitely something to consider. Whenever we're learning about something new like this, I think it's also really important to kind of think of what it's not. The small things that bring us joy every day, and the things that maybe, yes, we need to interact with them. We've got to use them. We've got to, carry on with our everyday work and activities, but maybe setting some boundaries, because sitting on your phone all day is definitely not hygge. If I was watching the story of my life, hopefully I'm not just watching someone sit on the couch on their phone all day, mindlessly scrolling. Staying at home all winter, one of the most important parts of hygge is embracing the outdoors and going outside and embracing whatever season it is. Strict rules like Marie Kondo, I was talking about decluttering a moment ago, so you maybe had that ping saying, oh yeah, I got to do the Marie Kondo thing. Well, it's not exactly specifically hygge. If you have maybe a bit more things than you'd like, but you use them all, totally fine to keep it according to the hygge rules. You are definitely allowed to be a little bit more forgiving with yourself when it comes to the decluttering lifestyle. And then as well, following trendy things, not as much. Some of the top words that were associated with hygge, you can probably already guess. So there was a survey done where they surveyed a bunch of people saying, okay, so what's the top thing you think of? What's your top words? And these were the ones: hot drinks, candles, fireplaces, Christmas, board games, music, holiday, Sunday, sweets, and books. Ugh. That just sounds good. If you want to learn more about hygge at home, I actually do have a YouTube video very specifically on that, and we'll talk a little bit more about wooden elements and things like that. But that is all for me in terms of my presentation. I hope that you got a lot out of that, and maybe you have some more questions. I know Lindsay has a little bit more for me. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, join up with Lindsay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda, for your talk. So we do have time for a brief Q&A session. So if anyone has any questions, please click the Q&A icon in the bar that appears at the bottom of your screen, and you can type in your questions there. And Amanda, while we're waiting for the audience members to type in some questions, I'd like to ask you some questions that were submitted during registration, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the first question we have is, in regards to Hygge, what works in spring and summer? Does this change as the seasons change?
I think that maybe some of the things might change because as we learned kind of in the presentation, you know, this percentage of people, Danes, will light candles in the fall and winter. Now, obviously that will change a little bit in the spring and summer, but I think the factor of coziness doesn't change. So maybe wearing a really like restrictive summer dress that you can't really move in, that doesn't sound very Hygge to me, but wearing my favorite laid back jumpsuit and joining my friends for a drink on a patio, I think that's kind of the feeling and the vibe that we're trying to create here. And it's so funny, Lindsay, because Hygge is, you just know it when you feel it. Like, has there been a moment recently where you have been in lockdown and you just felt this kind of Hygge vibe?
Yes, definitely. I think, you know, I got my diffuser for Christmas and a weighted blanket, and I feel like these are the cozy items. I have twinkly lights in my room, similar to what's in my background here. And I know that every day after work, you know, when I turn my devices off, these are the items that I'm going to kind of create that routine or that feeling of, okay, I've turned off the technology, and these are the things that make me feel good.
I really like that you said that because I think that there are some things, the way that our world is going now and it's changed, maybe some of the facts in this book, of course they have worked throughout the ages, but as technology has absolutely boomed, setting those boundaries, I think would 100% be written in this book now. And I love that you said that because I've started doing a 1 hour sleep routine where it's like 1 hour before bed, boom, everything's shut down because you just can't shut your mind down if you are just thinking about the next emails that you have to write the next day. That's not very Hygge at all.
Exactly. So the next question we have here is, how do you stay strong and not get bored at home during the pandemic, which could affect mental health?
So I like this question a lot because you know what? We're all going to get bored sometimes. It's totally human. And if you do feel bored, don't be too judgmental on yourself. One of the things that I find that really, really kind of butts up against boredom when I feel it coming on is, oh my goodness, I need to start learning something or I need to move my body. The most beneficial thing that we could be doing right now is, of course, getting a little bit of exercise every day, whatever that looks like. Going for a walk outside, embracing that, you know, there is no bad weather, only unsuitable clothing. But one thing that I've started doing again is I joined a Skillshare class actually because I wanted to learn how to draw and animate on Procreate. And there's always things that we can be learning. In this age of technology, as we talk about it, there's really no reason to be bored. So sometimes when I'm feeling bored, I'm thinking, oh, it's time that I need to start challenging myself again.
I love that you say that there's no bad weather, only bad clothing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of, you know, looking out my window and saying, okay, I'm only going to go for a walk if it's sunny. But if the whole week ends up being gray, you know, I don't get outside. And I'd say that's definitely an imperative part of my routine is getting that outside walk.
It's so true. Maybe not on a day like today where it's literally wind blowing in your face the one way, but I remember one night Scotty and I went for a walk and it had just started to rain, but we were looking forward to this walk because I'm sure like you guys at home, sometimes you're just sitting at your desk. Doesn't matter how ergonomic your chair is, your butt is in it all day long and you just need to move your body. And we were like, well, we best just get all wrapped up. And in my head, I was thinking, oh, it's cold and rainy. I'm going to bundle up and be fine. And when I get home, I am going to have the best bath with candles. And it's kind of like anticipating how the whole evening will round out after that.
So our next question is, you talked a little bit about that Hygge doesn't have to be this, you know, expensive practice. So any advice for Hygge using what you already have or how to do it on a budget?
Yeah, 100%. Not fancy, not expensive, not luxury. There's definitely always a place somewhere in life for champagne and oysters, but not so much in this practice. One thing that I love about Hygge so much is that it actually doesn't cost anything in many regards. So there's a little list here, and these are all things maybe you can consider to do one evening when you are feeling bored. Board games, a pantry party, some of these as well. It's convenient when you can get together with people, but maybe you can make something and you just dish it out and then you drive it to your friends' houses, leave it at the door, and you all do that. That would be really cute. Make a fire. You could do a swap party. Maybe you have a couple clothes you want to declutter. You call a Zoom, you hang out with your friends, you say, does anyone want this? And you're all doing that and you're swapping. Just general play. Getting outside, doing things like that, a TV night, creating a mini library to share as well. Maybe you live in an apartment. You could start an initiative where you create a little library and people just put in the books that they've already read. That's a pretty cool sharing community thing you could do. Outdoor movies, there's one in the summer, Lindsay. Sledding and gardening as well. Oh, just love that when you're in that flow of gardening and connecting with living things, listening to a podcast and connecting with a friend after about it, or just listening to your favorite music. One thing I hadn't written in this presentation, but this has changed my morning, is I type in the URL. It's called tree.fm. I hope you guys write this down, tree.fm. And when you type that in, it will then pull up a soundtrack loop that you can test different ones, and it's forests or outdoor spaces, and it will just be the sounds of birds. You guys, mental health wise, this has gotten me through. This has gotten me through. So it's basically all of these recordings around the world of forests or by a lake or whatever. So playing that and playing some music in the morning, it's your choice to energize your morning or not.
That sounds amazing. And,
yeah.
Speaking of mental health, does Hygge have to do anything with that mental healing? Is there a correlation there?
Well, 100% always seek out professional help if you're looking for anything to do with mental health. I know I've seen a therapist before. It was one of the best things I had ever done. Highly encourage you to seek out that as well. I think one of the things that maybe Hygge brings in when it comes to mental health is that togetherness and connection, and just realizing that connection is very important. And sometimes when we're feeling our darkest days, that's when we need to reach out, even when we don't want to the most. So I think maybe that would be the one part of it.
Awesome. So this next question I find very interesting because I can definitely relate to this back in the undergrad days, when you were living in a full student house of people. So how do you integrate Hygge in a student house when there's 6 other people in that house who are also struggling in unique ways?
So I love that earlier you said you have fairy lights. I don't know how many college tour videos I watched when I was in university of just seeing how people did up their dorm rooms. But yeah, creating that lighting. And one of the really cool things is like, when else in your life are you going to be, hopefully they're friends of yours. Let's just put that out there. When else are you going to be living with your friends, your girlfriends, your guy friends? Plan potluck nights, plan family dinners, because at some point someone's going to be feeling homesick. And I think as well, what's really important when you're living in a student house like that and you're trying to kind of set a nice feeling like this is to just set boundaries. Hey, when I've got my door shut, I don't want anyone to come in. Or you plan movie nights all together and you just have that to look forward to. I know I would always buy concert tickets with my friends for the summer because it was just so nice having things to look forward to. So it's kind of figuring out how you can do that again now in this pandemic time until we get back to normal.
And on that note of undergrad, how did being a life science grad influence any decisions or routines that you have that has made you an established adult?
Oh, we're talking adulting now. So I was very lucky when I went to McMaster. One, I absolutely am so happy that I chose McMaster as my university. Two, I'm also very happy that I bleed maroon. I was on the women's volleyball team, so that accomplished a very good section of scheduling. I think being a life science grad is always cool because in the life sciences, you get a lot of opportunity to choose different types of electives. And it exposed me to so many different things, which was great when it came to thinking about maybe something different like neuroscience to geography. It's just really nice having that broad knowledge of things. And in life sciences as well, I took a lot of environmental sciences, and all wrapped together. It's also very cool working at the Weather Network. I've been there for 4 years because you just never know. Education is always something that is going to benefit you down the road, even if it's not right then and there. After McMaster, I went to Sheridan for a journalism new media program, and it's just so funny to see this all wrapped together in one nice little bow for a job in the future. Actually, Lindsay, I do have one thing. After university, Mac, I worked at the Underground for 1 year, and I wanted to say one thing about Hygge and work. So 78% of Danes said that work should incorporate Hygge, which was very interesting because we don't do that in North America. Would you agree with me, Lindsay, that most offices have fluorescent lighting above them? Everyone's dressed up. What are we doing now that we're working from home? Maybe we'll integrate sweatpants Friday or matching monochromatic suit Friday. 13% of Danes said, no, it doesn't bother me at all. And 9% said they didn't know. But this is something that I never even realized I incorporated into working at the Underground when I was manager there. I was in the student union position, and our designers are extremely creative people. The people who work at the Underground are so fun, and the designers in the back are just so creative, and every single day they're working on branding and doing different things for people's, projects or actual brands, or the rollout for alumni presentations or things like that. And so I just would walk into that office every day and say, this does not bring out a creative vibe. So eventually I went to IKEA, I bought a bunch of those paper stand-up lights, I put them all around the office, and what do you know, after that, no one turned on that fluorescent lighting ever again. And it is very Hygge. Now looking back, who knew? Who knew there was a term for it?
That's so funny that you bring that up, because I too worked at the Underground, I think 1 year later, so you weren't the manager anymore. Mm-hmm. But I do remember actually from my time that if I needed something from one of the designers and I walked into that office, the lights were never on. And,
no!
And what's funny is until you just said that, for all these years, I didn't think about why the lights were never on. I just assumed that was how it is.
Yep.
So
I did it. It was fun. It's such a great collaborative workspace. I think that brought out a lot of Hygge.
And have you spent any time in Denmark?
So this is tragic. I had a trip booked, but then 2020 hit. So I've always been very interested in Scandinavian culture, but when I started diving into how to get through this winter, it kind of went right into how the Danish live. So that's how I've been learning about all of it, but I can't wait. That is our #1 trip to book again after this whole thing is up and done.
So we do have a couple more questions. So from Karen, what other books would you recommend on Hygge?
So I'll make a list for you guys. There was another one. I'm trying to remember the woman's name. Oh, Helen Russell. She was a British journalist, and she wrote The Year of Living Danishly. So that's another good one. And also too, don't even worry about if you don't have it in the budget to buy some extra books. There's a ton of amazing articles online as well, and even some really cool YouTube videos out there to learn more about it from different people. I think one of my best compliments on a couple of those videos was from people from either Norway or Denmark saying, hey, no, you really nailed it in this. So there's definitely information out there if you want to learn more.
And you've talked a little bit about, blankets and candles and teas like that. Can you incorporate pets into the Hygge lifestyle?
Oh my goodness. Every single day I am looking for a little adoptable Lindsay. Yes, of course. If a pet is a companion, right? And whether it's a couple of friends over or just a tiny fur friend, 100, I don't know why I looked down. That was me longing for a pet, apparently. But yeah, of course you can include pets in that. Whatever brings you comfort and has that feeling of maybe just a small intimate gathering.
Interesting. And now we've talked maybe a little bit about Hygge for adults or people who are working. So from Kari, what are your comments on maybe LED lights that are so popular right now in kids' bedrooms? Because we've talked a little bit about the twinkly lights or the fairy lights and the low lighting.
Yeah, so Scotty and I both have the Philips Hue lights. We have 2 of the play bars and then one of, you can see the yellow back there. They are kind of like those LED lights, and we can change the color of those, whatever the feeling is. We usually keep them into a warm color, or if he's watching the Maple Leafs, he'll turn them blue just for some of those vibes. But yeah, 100%, those colored lights are a lot of fun. I think it's just a lot about setting a vibe, and when you know it's right, you know it's right. I know that TikTok's been very popular with having the lights all around the ceiling lately, but it sets a really cool tone in the room, so definitely for it.
And I think that's a really creative way too when you have little kids and toddlers, because candles can be maybe a hazard for little ones, so trying to find ways that you can do that doesn't maybe include the flame.
The fire, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I would suggest, if you guys are looking into one light specifically, it's the Philips Hue Go light, and it's just this little half orb, and you can you plug it in to charge it, and then you can actually take it around, and it's just this little half light. I'll send the link to Jessica to send out to you guys. Write that down.
And one last question for today. What's the best way to incorporate Hygge into jewelry and fashion? And I'm totally a person who believes, when you wake up in the morning and you get ready, you just feel better throughout your day. Is that Hygge?
100%. I think, well, one of the main things is coming as you are. We talked about that a little bit. So if you are having a movie night, there's no need to wear your tightest skinny jeans, that's for sure. But I don't think that there's anything that says you have to be frumpy in any way, because I know that when I wake up and I get ready in the morning, I think we all learn that very quickly. We just feel better. The area that my job is in, I'm always having to get ready. So it's kind of forced me to do that throughout this whole thing. But I think when it comes to fashion, it also comes to textiles. I know I'm someone who always reaches for a good knit in the winter. I'm always there for a cable knit turtleneck, things like that, things that just make you feel good. Then that is 100% Hygge. If it's those skinny jeans, you go for it.
Awesome. Well, that is all the time we have today. So thank you for joining us, everyone. And thank you so much, Amanda. That was a great talk. So if you're interested in more of our At Home with Mac virtual programming, please visit our website at alumni.mcmaster.ca/athomewithmac. And today's webinar, as I said earlier, was recorded, and it will be available on our webinar archives channel on our website. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amanda, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a good day.